looks like it is 12 o'clock, so we are going to go ahead and get started. First, I want to thank all of you guys for coming and joining our webinar. I know you guys have a lot of webinars out there to choose from with everyone going digital now, so really appreciate you guys taking the time to come and listen to us. I'm Lauren Spears. I am PERQ's event manager. Mohammed Yassin, who is our EVP of marketing, he's going to be the one who's going to be running us through this panel webinar with our guests from Bainbridge, Drucker and Falk, and the management group. How this is going to work is we're going to do about 45 minutes of panel discussion, and then the last 15 minutes are going to be of Q&A. So you guys should see the chat feature and Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. Go ahead and throw questions in there as you guys think of them throughout the webinar, and then Mohammed will do Q&A at the end with everyone. Also, we will be doing polling questions throughout this, so please be on the lookout for that as they pop in your screen and participate. So without further ado, Mohammed, if you want to kick us off.
Thanks, Lauren. Appreciate that. All right, so I'm Mohammed Yassin, VP of Marketing at PERQ. Really excited to have all of you with me today. We're going to start off actually with a polling question for everyone in the group while we start going to introductions, right? And introduce kind of our great panelists for today. So while Lauren gets that queued up, it'll pop up on your screen shortly. I'll let Heidi get started with introductions.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Heidi Jaleka, the Senior Vice President of Marketing and Employee Development for the Bainbridge Companies. Happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
No, thanks for coming. Always great to chat with you. Really appreciate your insight and looking forward to what you have to share. Steve.
Hi, this is Steve Ospo from Drucker and Falk, Director of Marketing.
Awesome. Nice to meet you and chat with you and everything. Jamin.
Hey, everybody. I've got lots of toilet paper if anyone needs any. I am with the management group. I'm the EVP and partner there.
Excellent. And you've been a great, you have some great insight overall in all the events we've had so far. So today we're going to focus on in-person tours. The past couple we've talked about virtual options. So what does it look like to do a video tour, some pre-recorded conversations as well. Many of you have been on those and had some great insights and really appreciated that. But as we know, we're starting to see many states and counties slowly beginning to open up and allow for the option of in-person tours to be put back into the mix of options that we have available as we are sourcing new leases. So what we're talking about today is really what does it look like after lockdown, right? How do we get back into the format of doing in-person tours? What does it look like maybe to mix a little bit of what we learned through quarantine in with what we traditionally did from an in-person perspective and possibly do both formats? And everyone that we have here today is working through that just as most of us probably are right now in some format, right? So we're going to chat through what they're doing, what plans they have in place. And there's also a couple of things that have popped up over the course of the week, just in general conversations in the industry that we're going to touch on here and there as well. So let's pop up, Lauren, those results there. So on the first question was, what no contact tour options do you plan to continue using when lockdown is fully lifted? And we did a check all that apply here. So it looks like most people are looking to still do a self-guided physical tour, right? As well as live tours. And we actually have a tie there on the two of those. Those are the tops, followed very closely by virtual 360s and pre-recorded. So it looks like pretty much everything we've talked about over the past couple of weeks and months, really very much in play as we go forward. And Jamin, since we've got you up there on the screen already, we're going to start with you and kind of just chat on question number one, which is really around this idea of tour options. What are you currently offering right now? And what are you thinking about continuing to work with as we start going out of a lockdown scenario?
Yeah, so right now Okay, the first thing we did was we activated some resources that were always available on our website. We just never really did it. We could always throw a video link up there. So we sent all of our people out back, I think the first week of March, with their cell phones, and they made some homemade tours, the leasing consultants, and they really did a great job. And they walked around and showed where it was a model. They did that. They also did vacants. Then I sent someone that spoke Spanish. We threw it up on YouTube, and then I know I have confirmed that all of the property management websites allow you to throw a YouTube link where they're not hosting the video up. And that now has been, I follow everything on my Google Analytics, and that has been one of my highest, it's the most engagement on our website right now. And then in mid-April, we rolled out self-guided tours. And I would say that probably right now, people really want to get on site, and my self-guided tours are blowing up. We have a 50% closing ratio with self-guided tours. And I'll just tell you one quick story. The fun thing is that we put a camera in there and say, "Smile, you're on camera." So we're not hiding it, and it's not creepy. But we also stuff our refrigerators, our WOW refrigerators, and we put a sign that says "Open me, enjoy a snack." And it's like we almost scripted our prospects, because they grab a bag of Cheetos, they grab a Coke, they go sit on the sofa, and they say, "I could really see myself living here." It's just awesome.
Oh, wow. No, that's amazing. I haven't heard that one before. Lots of people talking about doing kind of the self-guided tours, but the idea of actually staging the experience in a way where they can really feel like they're at home versus just, wandering around in an empty unit. That's amazing. I love that. I love that. Heidi, what's working for you so far that you feel like you're going to continue using going forward that maybe you weren't leaning into so much before?
Yeah, so very similar to Jam. In the very beginning, we just used cell phone videos, had our leasing professionals go out and walk through vacants, models, amenities. And we, instead of converting them into YouTube videos and putting them up on our website, we just used our social media channels. So Facebook, and then we used Instagram, our IGTV to put those out. And then we would schedule what we would call virtual tours with the prospect over the phone after we had sent that link out in an email as well. So we sort of used both of those platforms and saw pretty good results from that virtual tour experience. And then, as we know, customer demands change, and we started to get a little bit of buzz out there that that was great, and thank you for the information, but now I want to physically tour the building, and we weren't obviously doing that. So we had to quickly figure out, how do we do a self-guided tour where we weren't exposing the entire building, they were only allowed to go into a unit. And so we kind of did an ad hoc, if you will, version of self-guided tours. Did obviously all the requirements that we needed as far as ID scanning and checking and that sort of thing, but literally just sort of do what the hotels are doing. I had to stay in a hotel recently, and you literally get the key left on a table in front of the front desk at the hotel. You grab it and you go, and that's sort of the same philosophy that we put into play. So that was what our initial phase, and then what kind of I'll call phase 2 looked like with the self-guided. And then as we kind of continued through this process, we started vetting out some vendor partners to help us with a little bit more of a formalized video, so that we have those going forward. So we have, now put on a lot more vendor partners to help us with self-guided tours. With smart locks, we've also signed up with someone to help us do more professional videos, so we can do similar to what the management group is doing, and creating those on a YouTube channel and using those going forward.
Gotcha. So you're really doubling down on the idea of continuing with the virtual tours from a video perspective.
Yeah, I really, because of the results that we saw, even from the initial first week, our leasing numbers, I think, shocked everyone, not only on the marketing team side, but our operations team could not believe that we were continuing to lease at the velocity that we were at. I mean, like I said, even week 1, we were just blown away. So I think what we've realized is that customers or prospects rather are okay with looking at your community through a video and making a buying decision from that. I think, you know, consumers these days, we're used to buying things online. We don't have to touch and feel things, but in the case that we do need to touch and feel it, then we put that vendor partner in for that self-guided tour.
That's amazing. I love the smart lock idea for sure. So I'm hearing kind of some similarities between both of you, right? Where we start with the idea of shooting some videos, recording them, having them available, folks really flocking towards those, and something you can continue carrying forward with. But now coming into a scenario as things start opening up, where people are wanting to do maybe they want to see the unit, but still want to do that safely, which guides us into the self-guided tour option. Are you seeing that same sort of behavior on your side, Steve?
Yes. Actually, I don't think it's a coincidence that Jamin and Heidi and I, our organizations had kind of a very similar plan. For us, when we rolled out, we as quickly as possible, and I mean within days, had training resources on how to shoot a video just with your cell phone, understanding that every property had different resources available to it. But knowing that video was going to be the easiest way for us to maintain our leasing numbers at that time. So we quickly got that information together and out to our sites, and we saw the same thing. Our leasing didn't dip as much as we may have anticipated, and I think that's because of the consumer behaviors these days. We're used to seeing things online. We're used to going and getting some pictures or watching a video of a property or a product that we buy, so it really translated well. And then we did the same thing. We hit a level where we're following very closely the state and local ordinances, and started opening up some self-guided tour options and trying to create those. And now we're starting to phase into a transition where we're going to bring on some partners to do that as well. But although people will largely like to see an apartment community, we've actually had a great response to the virtual tours, and we're rolling that into a game plan moving forward as units become available, especially for our properties that have a large number of different floor plan styles. Is once they're ready to lease, we can go in and shoot that video and sort of create a catalog of resources for ourselves. So I like to say we moved 2 years forward in 2 months as far as our online presence and our video presence online. And so we're looking at ways to make sure that we maintain that.
You know, I think that's probably true for a lot of companies that are doing any type of, commerce right now. The past 2 months have, on one hand, been a big pause, right? The great pause, but at the same time, it's also, I think, catapulted many of us forward into areas that we were maybe thinking about before or didn't even know were possible. In May itself, as you see some of those tweaks happening or going into June, what are you expecting as far as formats that people are going to want the most, Steve?
I think once people get used to seeing the videos online, that's an option that's there. I think people are going to want to see the video. I think of the traditional customer journey where they find us, maybe our front door is really online before it comes, they drive by. In many instances, they say almost 80% of people start their apartment search online. So knowing that, if someone lands on our website, they have one more option now to get familiar and see the space and spend more time on our site than they did before. And that's only to our benefit if we're prepared for it. So I think we will continue to see that moving forward. I think that's going to become part of the new buying expectation as we move along, that there are more visuals, not just photographs, but video is part of it. You want to see more of the community before you commit to driving there, even when you can drive there. So I'm expecting that to kind of implement itself on a larger scale than it has in the past.
Yeah, I would agree with you. So we're going to double down on this self-guided piece a little bit and actually go down this path. We actually had a question from Christy that reminds me of a conversation we were having just before we went live around the idea of sanitation, right, in relation to doing a self-guided tour, right? Heidi, I love your idea of the keys kind of being out there in a predetermined location so you can kind of pick them up, maybe no contact. But you still have to have that traffic going in and out of that unit potentially. I mean, I know you had some breakthroughs in the past couple of days around easy sanitation. You want to share those?
Yeah, actually, I think it's Jammin that has the easy sanitation solution.
It is. I'm excited.
Yeah.
Let's talk
So
about
I'm calling it the magic water machine. Right. So we've been looking for, and we're following the CDC, and OSHA actually has a reopening guide of how to sanitize. And one of the things that it talks about is you have to do general sanitation, and then you also have to do high touch area sanitation. So how do you do that? And so I've been researching the different machines. I think the first one that everyone tried to jump on is called the Clorox 360 machine. They're about $6,000, and they're about 14 weeks to get them. And then there's other machines that range from all different types. We have chosen to use a fogger system, where the fogger system, we're going to use it every day in the leasing offices. We just got the foggers today in the leasing offices, models, and the amenity areas, the gyms and things like that. And then we've synced up with a company. I sent the information in, so I think Miss Lauren has it if anyone wants it. That I call it the magic water machine. Maybe the vendor got a little bit frustrated with me because I told him I was going to have to build an infographic because he wasn't doing a good job explaining, and I could sell it better than him. But basically, you put water in this machine. It kind of looks like a big crock pot, and you put some electrolyte powder in it, and it spins around and charges it and makes it hospital-grade disinfectant. And that way, your team members are not having to touch chemicals, handle chemicals, store chemicals, all these guidelines, MSDS sheets, and then and also there could be mixing errors, the 3-to-1 and all that. I'd rather deal with water that I put a little powder in and it electrically charges. So that's what we're doing. And I know that there's several large management companies that's already on this boat. So when I started asking for reference, I was pleased to hear it, and I called and double checked.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. And one thing that we didn't mention at the beginning, we're gonna, as we have some of these ideas that come up, such as the magic fogger machine, right? The magic water machine. We're gonna actually collect all of those, and following this webinar, we're gonna collect those into kind of a blog post. We'll have that out to everyone who registered by Monday. So you can kind of have those links. He already sent us over that information, so we're really excited for that. We'll get some other options in there as well. Let's move on a little bit to, we know what we have been doing and what we're kind of seeing going in. Let's chat about actually reopening and the idea of literal in-person tours, right? And what that would look like. Let's start with Steve here. Phased approach versus going all in.
So we landed on a phased approach. We have multiple properties in multiple states and multiple cities within states. So we're very, very conscious of state ordinances, but also local ordinances as well. So we were a little conservative in our approach, I think, to be sensitive. But still wanting to open up business as it went. So we went into a 2-phase approach. So depending on where a property is, and I know in the Southeast specifically, most of these properties are on the phase 1 approach, where we're going to start to offer in-person tours with some elements that weren't there before. For instance, you have to schedule a tour in advance. The office doors are still locked to the general public coming in, but those tours are available there, limiting the number of people that can come in on an individual tour to 2 to try to keep the number of people down. And then also making sure that we were equipped with face masks that people can wear when they come in on the tour. We understand that this is affecting everyone differently, so we're trying to make sure we're taking the precautions necessary as we invite people into these homes, that we're providing them the safe environment. And then also, as we look at our amenity spaces and those things, we will tour those spaces, but they're not going to be open to the general public or to our residents yet.
Gotcha. That's an important distinction there. Jamin and Heidi, both of you, Jamin, I know you put together a really great kind of phased approach plan, action steps on how to get things going. You've been following along very closely with the CDC guidelines and that sort of thing. Can you chat a little bit about how that rollout looks like from the perspective of what you've created?
All right, I'll go first, then we'll let Ms. Heidi go.
Yes.
All right, so all right, like how are we rolling it out and how are we phasing it? We decided to, when I was reading through all the data, I said, I'm just going to read everything I can on the CDC website, everything I can on the White House reopening, it's called Reopening America, Opening Up America Again website. And I just decided I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. They give broad strokes of guidelines for your businesses to reopen. So we're following that. And one of the key ingredients is called a gating criteria, G-A-T-I-N-G. And it says that you have to have 14 days of a downward trajectory before you could even consider going to what they call phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. So I wrote my plan like that. And then you have to decide where are you getting that data from, right? Because you can get it from Johns Hopkins, you can get it off of Google. We chose to go to the CDC website, you click on your state, and then that takes you, in most cases, to the Department of Public Health. So in the states we operate in, we're following Department of Public Health, looking for a 14-day plan. And I don't want to take up too much time, but did you want me to tell you about the different buckets of how we're doing it?
Yeah, let's chat just pretty high level, because I know you had some really good like organizational structure of how you were breaking that out. And I know Heidi can chat in a little bit more detail about that as well, because I know was just chatting about how she's leveraging it as well.
All right. Yeah. So I kind of broke it into just like 4 buckets. And I said, so what is the criteria that we have for like our leasing and office team and corporate office team? What is the criteria for our maintenance team? And how are we going to engage with our current customers, our residents, and our new customers, the prospects? So those 3, plus what overall physical adaptations and adjustments do I need to make to the property? So I put together a plan. I made sure I synced it up with the White House CDC guidelines of phased opening 1, 2, and 3. And, you know, like for the leasing office, you know, we're doing the acrylic shields in front of the desk. And, you know, and I kind of take it as our responsibility as leaders to make sure that they have the hand sanitizer. I've sourced that. And you find it in unlikely sources. And to make sure that we have, you know, the wipes and we have all of that, the foggers. I'm taking all that as my responsibility. For our maintenance guys, you know, make sure they have their PPE. I make them do a weekly report to report that how many masks do they have, how many gloves.
Oh, gotcha.
And then for the, we've created a daily reopening, it's called a COVID log. And it's one of the requirements is when you reopen is that you have to, for your team members, you have to take their temperature every day and you have to report or send them home if they are greater than 100.4, and you have to get a well-being statement at the beginning and at the end of the day. And then we ordered, for the residents, we have a new amenity addendum that everyone has had to sign before they get to engage in the like swimming pool and fitness centers and things like that. And then finally, we've ordered a bunch of signage also that we're putting all over, the distancing signs, wash your hands signs, please practice social distancing, things like that.
I love it. So what I love about this overall is just the idea of the phases really being very much a data-based approach, right? Numbers are the numbers. When the numbers hit, we make this change. When this number is hit, we make this change. Versus leaving a lot of open area.
One of the key things is to look at it also on a county by county level, because there may be other municipality restrictions too. And so I'm looking at it not only for the states, but in each state you can drill down by the counties. And I have one county that is not doing as great. And so we're actually keeping them back. Because I'm moving into phase 2 on my properties, but I have one property that's staying in phase 1.
That's amazing. That's amazing. All right. We're going to have Lauren, can you pop up question 2 while we move to Heidi and chat a little bit more about her approach as well? I know you talked a little bit about this earlier today, Heidi, just following a little bit of his plan and then what you were looking at as far as phasing opening and what that looks like for you and your team. Because you have a wide variety of properties as well that I imagine are in the same scenario, where you may have different scenarios as far as what's happening on the ground property by property. What's that look like for you? What are you doing to approach that?
Yeah, exactly. And it really is all about local and state ordinances. So our portfolio is New York to Miami. So you can imagine we've got a lot of different government agencies telling us what we can and cannot do. At this point, we are really only focused on Florida and on North Carolina. All of the other states that we operate in are still not even at phase 1 of opening. So our plan is phase 1 for Florida, and then North Carolina is only amenities to our residents. So we partnered with a software company to help us to control the population, if you will, in the fitness centers, as well as the pool areas. No other areas of the office. So our doors are still locked. So residents are not coming into the office at this point in time during phase 1. So pools and fitness centers will open. We again went through a very same approach. There's a ton of signage. You know, you have to have your masks, the washing your hands. We even purchased dots to put on the floor to give everyone an idea of how far 6 feet apart is from everyone. Those will be in the area, obviously, of the fitness center, but then we bought enough to help them with prospects and residents as the doors begin to open, to kind of help with the flow of traffic. And then obviously if someone is standing at someone's desk where 6 feet is. And then the amenity system that we purchased also gives people a pass, essentially. So at any point in time, we can check to make sure that the people, or the residents rather, at the pool have a current pass to be utilizing that particular amenity at the time. And we have not rolled that out. Our official kickoff is tomorrow morning.
That's
so
exciting.
We're excited about getting there. And so once we go through phase 1, which will be those 2 areas, again, Florida, North Carolina only, our approach on tours and what happens once we do open the doors is very similar to what's already been shared. If you don't have an appointment, you know, it's by appointment only. And we are only going to start with our lease up properties. And that will be after Memorial Day. It'll be the end of Memorial Day week. So we're going to give us a couple days to recover from that. And we'll start taking appointments on that portfolio of properties. And then we'll see how that goes. And then the following week after that is when we'll do the operating portfolio again, as long as it's allowed by a city or a state or a local ordinance to do that. And we're only going to show apartments. We're actually not going to show the amenity spaces. And we will have designated tours, or what we're showing today. And I think the question from the attendees is, what are we going to do as far as cleanliness is concerned? We are going to have an hour in between each tour. So it's not like for 8 hours you're open, you can do 8 tours. We'll be open for 8 hours and can do 4 tours. So every other hour, which will give our teams full time to go in and sanitize the unit until we get, hopefully, these foggy machines that are available. We're
Sounds
excited.
like they're going to be out of stock after everyone on this call gets them this evening, right? So it sounds like you guys are, it's interesting, you have kind of the slightly different approach on the amenities portion, right? Where we have one area or one group that is saying, all right, we're only doing it for tours. And one group that's saying we're not doing it for tours, we're only opening up to our existing residents. And then you mentioned something about lease ups only as well. What was the thought process behind saying we're just going to start just with the lease ups and test there?
Yeah, I think our theory behind that is demand right now, and just kind of the conversations that we're hearing. We're brand new construction in these cases, and people haven't seen us. So I think there's a higher demand of I want to actually see something. So that's why we're starting with that group, that portfolio first.
Love it. All right, we're gonna hold those questions for a second. Lauren, I wanna follow up on this as a kind of a question for all of you. I know, Heidi, you have a little bit of insight here. In relation to the idea of slowly phasing in these tours, and it sounds like everyone across the board is being very careful about following state guidelines, right? A lot of discussion about keeping the employees that are on site safe, right? Whether those be maintenance people, whether those be leasing agents, making sure there's a safety aspect for them. And also a little bit of liability that I'm hearing as well, and trying to really mitigate some of that as we slowly move back in in-person tours. There was a really popular forum post on Multifamily Insiders earlier this week. It came out in the newsletter as well. It was included in there, where someone in Texas at a property down there was having trouble with multiple people who were, in her words, literally refusing to lease unless they did in-person tours. And she really wanted to accommodate and give the best experience possible, but she was in an area where their county had not opened the option of doing in-person whatsoever. Parts of the city were open, certain industries were open, apartment complexes were not one of those that had been included in the guidelines yet. I imagine, just because, you know, this is a very emotional time for many of us, right? This is going to be a scenario that pops up from time to time in different areas. What advice would you give on handling a situation like that, right? Where you do want to give really good service to that potential prospect, that potential long-term renter, but you also have to be really careful about it. I know you've run into a little bit of that as well, Heidi, so I'll let you continue on how have you handled those situations? And I'm really interested in kind of following up. I know, Steve, we didn't get a chance to talk about that one in particular beforehand, but I'm coming to you next.
So this is actually what catapulted us into that forced self-guided tour option. We had a property in a lease-up situation in the Tampa market. The prospect refused that I'm not going to rent with you unless I can physically see the apartment. And we had to make an executive decision, quickly pivot, and come up with the approach that we're taking, and that is the leaving the key on a table in the office, giving them access into the clubhouse area to grab that key, and then that is the one apartment that this particular prospect was allowed to see, and then everything else was done online. So we were actually on the phone with him through a face-to-face environment, so we could actually talk to him. So it wasn't like he had free reign of the community. But again, that was the only way he was going to be happy. And we were in phase 1 at this point. We were not doing self-guided tours. This was very early on. And, you know, good thing for the team there, they actually rented the apartment. So it was a win.
Amazing.
But what it did help us to understand is that there is going to be this demand, and we do need to be nimble, and we do need to be flexible. And how do we solve for that? So even though we weren't advertising it out to the prospects on our websites that we were doing self-guided tours, if we were pushed against the wall, we had an option because they had done it, and they had done it successfully.
Gotcha. Thank you. What are your thoughts on that, Steve?
Actually, very similar. Talking to our regional property managers and getting a feel for our people just not going to lease unless they can come and see it. And that really varied and to a surprising amount for me. I thought there would always be an aspect of that. And in some areas, it just hasn't been an issue. People are just fine with sight unseen, I guess you'd call it, but not in the traditional sense. So we were very happy with that. And that kind of started to develop what our longer term strategy with our video and online leasing was going to be. But then there were markets where people, they wanted to see it. So we did a very similar thing at Drucker and Falk. And it wasn't a massive rollout. It was more regionally based and coming up with ways to provide self-guided tours, because we knew we didn't want to wait 3 weeks to a month to try to work with a vendor to set something up initially.
Sure.
So how are the ways that we can provide this? And so for us, I mean, it's between 9 and 5 when the office is there and there's someone there to make sure that they can get into the apartment, even if they're not going with them on the tour. So we tried a variety of things, all kind of similar in that manner. And then now we're starting to look at vendor partners who we may be interested in working with in a more long-term effect. Yeah, we saw in some areas not really a huge demand to get anxious and numb to those in-person tours, and in other areas it was more so.
That's interesting. That's definitely interesting. From a measures perspective, as you're leaning into that, what types of measures are you taking to kind of make sure everyone feels safe from a residence rental prospects? That's one thing we haven't really talked about really in this whole conversation, is the residents themselves who are already there, right? Had a lot of conversation around leasing agents or the office staff, the maintenance staff, the potential prospects that are looking for rentals. But we also have the actual residents who live there and have lived there the whole time. What sort of considerations or measures are you taking to make sure that they also feel safe and are staying around long term?
Yeah, I think a lot of that comes down to communication. I mean, at the end of the day, we're people talking to people. So we're not trying to avoid anyone until there's a final answer. It's keeping everyone up to date with the status of things. We can do that by email, thankfully, and we can do that through notices on doors where we're still not coming in contact. So it's just keeping an open communication as to here's what's going on, here's what we know in your state and area, and here's what we're doing. And then internally for employees, we do the same thing. And we have a regular email that goes out from our president that's like, here's what we've done. And it just catalogs everything. It'll show you the whole history, and then it just adds on to the end. And
oh, wow.
Here's where we are right now. So just keeping the lines of communication open. I mean, fear comes from not knowing. So if you can start to alleviate some of that fear by putting people in the know of what's going on in the latest, we're proactively trying to get ahead of it in the best way that we can.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. With the communications, are you working on like a communication schedule where it's, every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we're doing something? Or are you saying we have news, get it out there immediately, and then next time we have news, we'll get that out too? Or is it a mixture of both? What's that look like?
Yeah, so well, it's more of a schedule of things for us, I guess. We have an idea of when there's going to be new news based on what's going to be released next. And
Sure.
So every conversation is, here's what we know now, we'll let you know what's coming up next when we know more. So I can't say it's like every the 1st and the 15th of every month we're going to send something out. But we do want to make sure it's constant. It's not just a one-time deal, and then you don't hear from us again until you have a work order that needs to be placed.
Right.
So it's as we know the information, we're trying to get it out there to make sure our residents are informed too.
That's amazing. So Jamie, we haven't chatted in a minute. It's been a while since we talked. I know you spend a lot of time training your staff and really making sure that they're prepared and they are engaged through all of this. And clearly, as you've mentioned, ahead of time, there's a lot of work you're doing to ensure some of the safety measures around them. What about training measures going into an in-person scenario? What sorts of things are you what sort of considerations are you having as you train the staffs to get prepared to open the doors back up?
Yeah, so when we were at the end of March and we were going into April, we decided to do scripted interactions with residents. So we forecasted a bunch of the questions like, I don't have to pay my rent. The government says I don't have to pay it, or you can't evict me anyway. So we came up with, instead of leaving that to everybody's own communication style, we came up with bullet points of how we wanted that message to go across. And we've taken that scripted interaction and every week we send out something new. We only communicate once a week with our residents. It's every Friday. Our residents expect it. If they don't get it by noon, they're starting to call us. They want to know what's going on, and they just know that we do it every Friday. But we also, before that, on Thursdays, we have a all office team Zoom call, and we go over continued scripted interactions. So first it was about like paying your rent and how we were going to work with them with that. Now it's things like, the fitness center. Why is the fitness center not open yet? And instead of just leaving it to people's discretion how to answer it, we give everybody the same answers, so we're all in sync and how we communicate.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Lauren, can you go ahead and pop up the answers to that last the answers from the last poll around opening time frames? I'm kind of curious to see that. I glanced at it very briefly. It was on the screen a minute ago, and was surprised on the answers there. All right. So the question was, when do you plan on reopening your leasing office to the public and residents? I'm going to kind of go through these, and we're going to go into our last question so we can then open up potential Q&As. We have a couple of questions out there, and we'll walk through those. So we have 40% saying, I'm not sure yet. That's a pretty big number, right? And it really speaks to the fact that a lot of this is very quickly moving right now. There are a lot of people with a lot of considerations, and I'm hoping you're going to be able to get a lot of answers just from the folks that we've got here now. Next behind that is 25% that I already have. So we've got 25% of the audience that literally is open right now with some considerations. And I'd love for those of you that answered on the already have, if you could pop into the chat questions or chat box there, just any considerations you've had going so far, and how it's working for you. I'd love to hear some of that. That'd be great. I think for us to chat through on the Q&A section. And then behind that, we've got an even split, 10, 10, 10, 10%, right? On within the next week, 2 weeks, next month, more than a month. The vast majority are still in that open area of not being sure when exactly they're able to open, which is a great time, honestly, to start putting those plans together, reviewing what you may want to do and putting those triggers in place for what opening up looks like. The other thing we need to look at, of course, is measures of success, right? We are in a different scenario. I heard a lot of you talking about how surprising maybe it was for the success of virtual tours and self-guided tours on actually driving leases, right? I think all of us, myself included, have also had to take a really hard look at the traditional metrics I've been looking at for a long time and say, okay, what does it look like now? And also, how's that going to translate into the future? Because I think I agree, it's not June, July doesn't come and we suddenly stop doing these things. We found some new channels that can work forever and are going to be in our mix overall. How has this whole thing changed the measures of success as far as how you look at the indicators leading up to a lease, Heidi?
Well, they haven't changed for us. I will put us in an arena that we saw success, like I mentioned earlier, the very first week we were doing virtual touring, we didn't see a significant drop that was alarming or concerning. So our KPIs have not changed. So anything from prospect to tour to rental, those KPIs have stayed exactly the same. I think what my philosophy is, and what we at Bainbridge have thought is, the quality of the customer has improved, because you're not going to go through this process if you're really not looking. If you're just sort of have nothing else to do on a Saturday, maybe you've been driving by this community for as long as you can remember because it's close to your office, whatever the case may be. Oh, I'm just going to stop in and check it out. That has stopped. And so the customer that's coming to our leasing professionals are serious buying customers. And, so in my opinion, don't change your KPI. For us, we're not changing KPIs.
Would it be accurate to say the KPIs are remaining the same, but coming out of this, potentially what is a good number inside that KPI may be different? Maybe the bar has been raised slightly on the quality or the conversion or those sorts of things long term.
Yeah, I think that long term, truth will be told. I think we will go back to a little bit of looky-loos. I think we'll go back to people who are not ready to make that decision. I don't think that's going to be in the immediate future, however. Perhaps middle to the end of summer, maybe as we go into people looking for an apartment community near their school district, maybe at that point you might see a bit of more traffic. It's kind of doing that bigger search. But for right now, time is only going to be able to answer that question.
I think that's true for all of us, right? We are literally taking things a day at a time and learning as we go. What about you, Steve? How are you looking at metrics overall?
I have to say we took a very similar philosophy. The goals for each property haven't changed. We're still going to try to hit occupancy for all those sites. What changed is how we get there. So I guess our key result areas that we were looking at are the same, but our key performance indicator, our metrics of how we get there have varied slightly. So our goal very quickly transitioned to we need to find a way to engage with people sooner, faster. And so that's the approach that we took. So as far as have our goals changed? Are we changing our numbers? No, we're still trying to push the same expectations. It's just how we're achieving those numbers is strategy. Really, we don't want to decrease the number of people that necessarily visit our site, but so maybe at the same time we can increase the amount of people who engage with us longer. And we've been seeing that the time on page for our sites is increasing, which has been positive for us. And we do a weekly internal marketing call. We call it a boost call. And we go over, like, these are the properties that have had 5+ applications this week. And the list just keeps growing week to week. So it's been the challenge for us hasn't been how do we change our goals. It's been how do we achieve the same goals? What do we need to change internally to make sure that happens?
And what's amazing about that is, going through a time like this where, the entire world ships up underneath you, the ability, really for all of you to be able to say, I'm still going for the same goal, right? I'm not saying, all right, everything is shutting down, so therefore I'm going to back off and I'm going to accept less. You're saying I'm sticking with that same one, and you're also all seeing success, it sounds like, on getting there just with new strategies. And that's amazing.
Mohammed, the one thing I would add, and I think we're probably all already doing it, and we were pre-COVID, but I think your current resident renewal has become a target that you are really able to focus on, because that person doesn't necessarily have to leave now. Maybe, they don't have to shop. How do you make it enticing and attractive to get them to stay? So, very early on, getting to those notice to vacate, saying, what can we do to get you to, renew for 3 months, 6 months? And there was some flexibility that we put in play to get the notice to vacates to stay.
That's nice. That's a good one. All right, Jamin, we're going to start with you on the last question here.
1 second. I want to answer that question.
Go ahead. Go for it.
Steve and Heidi are so dang smart. I want to at least flex a little bit. I just think that it's super important to, at least for us, our key performance indicators, one of them is how much traffic you have coming in, and that tied to my revenue management system. So we immediately adjusted that as it's one of the 4 levers that move our pricing up and down for renewals and for new leases. And we immediately disregarded the traffic because our people weren't physically entering in traffic anymore. So that was really important for us to make sure that we did that. And I agree with Heidi on the renewals thing. We really leaned into renewals. We've already sent out letters all the way through September, and are pleasantly surprised how many people are renewing.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah, that's it.
Sorry, I wanted to jump in and give you that.
No, that's great. I'm gonna let you start off on last words here, because we love to, end with something very actionable. For folks that are still in that, 40% stage or one of those 10% buckets where they're still getting ready to reopen, outside of the great stuff you've already shared, single best tip you could give everyone that properties could start using right now to get ready?
I would say goal alignment and engaging at all levels. I wasn't doing this before, but hopping on a call every single week with all of my maintenance team, and then a call with all my leasing and assistant team, and then I combined my managers and corporate office department heads together. I would just say it's really helped us. It was really fun because your maintenance guys now, after about 3 weeks, they're hopping on the conference calls, and now they're leaning into the camera and they're going, Jorge's here. And I mean, they love it. And, so we send lunch to our maintenance team every single week before the call. And Taco Bell, by the way, has a great taco bar you can have delivered for $25. And this week was Chick-fil-A, 2 weeks ago was Chinese. So, so I would say engaging at all levels helps you align your goals. And I think even if you're just a property, and not even if, but when you're just a property manager, I think that's important too, just to have consistent meetings, and sharing what is the goal all the way down. It's been really healthy for our organization. And I have to say, April for us was better than March, and May is already better than April. So it's worked for us.
That's awesome. It's so cool to see how distance has actually brought many of us closer together across departments and across functional areas. It's interesting there. Steve, best tip?
My best tip would be don't plan to go back to normal. We all learned a lot through this experience, and we all picked up some things that we weren't doing before that we're doing now that we're showing are working. So when the time comes where everything opens back up, that doesn't mean that we have to peel off those things that were working. It's just now we have an extra tool in our tool belt.
Awesome. And Heidi.
I have two. Talk to your vendors. Don't recreate the wheel. Oftentimes your vendors will have solutions for you that you just may not have been aware of before. There's products and services that they offer that you could plug and play. And the last thing that I really have is around communication. So one thing that, you know, we've heard many times from on-site is I just get so much information. How do I prioritize and where do I go? My recommendation would be is get together as departments who are sending out communications to either prospects or your internal customer, your team member, and put that all together. So it's not 4 emails that they get, but they get one email that has, you know, basically what is the update in operations? What is the update in marketing? What is the update from my benefits? Because human resources had to get information out to team members as well. So that would be just a recommendation that I would have is put your communication plan together and keep it consolidated.
Awesome. We're hearing that over and over again. All right, we have, I'm just going to run through questions really quick. We're going to have one person take each question, and you can literally just raise your hand if you want to take it, and we'll go to you and you'll answer. All right, let's see here. Okay, first one is I will answer this one and say yes, from Latoya. Was asking about the vendor information for the magic water machine and the sanitizing foggers. We will send that out. We'll make sure we get that out via email right at the beginning of the week, so that everyone can have that, because I think we're all very interested in it. That was a great find on your part, and we appreciate you digging through all the options to find a cost-effective solution. That's much appreciated. There's a question about cleaning between tours for Kristen. So if you're maybe not using the fogging machine maybe once a day, but actually between tours, who's doing the cleaning?
Yeah, I can take that since we're the ones that are putting the hour spread between tours, and it'll be our service teams. So our service teams will be going in and disinfecting the apartments between tours.
Gotcha. A great question from Brian. It says that in this life after lockdown and the adaptive operation procedures, can anyone speak to community reputation management and what that looks like? Any best practices for handling commentary on public forums, social media, Google, etc., or even residents' communication when it's something that is out of the control of the on-site team? So Steve, we'll start with Steve. We'll actually jump on you, Jamin, as well on this one.
Our general strategy for responding to online reviews and review management is, to acknowledge the feelings that someone's had and then take the conversation offline. I think when it comes to something that was a pandemic that affected everyone, you can add a little bit of a human element into that reply as well. We understand that the challenges that have been presented in the current climate had led to blah, blah, blah. Call our leasing office. We're still open virtually. We're always there to answer these kinds of questions and then kind of take the conversation offline. So for me, I think the overall strategy for how we would approach negative comments would be very similar, just adding an extra maybe human element to it in that regard. Yeah, I guess we'll leave it at that and we'll let Jamie chime in.
Yeah, go for it.
My tendency, I guess my knee-jerk reaction is just to tell everybody to just please simmer down. Simmer down. But I don't reckon that's probably a good reply for these reviews. So I don't know. I see it as 100% right. You acknowledge their feelings, empathy. We try to talk to people. We try to call them and talk to them, and part of our scripted interaction is, hey, tell me more about that. Tell me how you're feeling. Tell me what's hard for you. And that's empathy. We don't have to, I'm not there to solve your problem. I'm there to listen to you and to let you know that I care about you.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I'm hearing the consistent things across the board here. So just to wrap up here, a couple of things that I heard throughout this whole piece. Definitely consistent meetings and communication, right? Communication and meeting with not only your teams and multiple departments, maybe more so, and with people that you maybe wouldn't have spoken to before, but also very consistent, regular communication with your residents as well. Making sure you have a plan, right? And Jamin's got a great kind of layout for that we'll make sure it gets to everyone. A plan that is very clear on, I'm doing this, then I'm doing this, then I'm doing this, and is respectful of the local community guidelines as well, while making everyone, really safe. And then I'm going to go ahead and take the simmer down one, right? It is for all of us, right? And of course, we deliver that with some empathy. We deliver that with some thought, and we don't say maybe exactly like that to everyone, but even for ourselves, giving ourselves the space to slow down, take a moment, think about things, and really deliver, an experience back to our prospects and our residents and our employees that shows that empathy and provides the space for, for safety and growth, not only right now, but even long term, because to Steve's point, don't plan on going back to normal. There will be a new normal. And this is all about getting prepared for that. So thanks to all of you for jumping on today. Really, really, really appreciate it. We'll get this all wrapped up into a subsequent post, and I'll flip it back over to Lauren.
Yeah, hey guys, just echoing what Mohammed said, thank you so much for joining. Thank you, Heidi, Steve, and Jamin for being a part of this. You guys shared a ton of great information. There will be a follow-up email coming from me. Probably you'll see it in your inboxes Monday or Tuesday. Monday is Memorial Day for all of us, so hopefully on Tuesday. We don't want anyone working on Monday. But we will have the Fogger information, the phased reopening plan in that. If you guys have any other questions, please send me an email and we will try to get that information to you. Additionally, we will be doing another webinar here in the next few weeks with PowerPro Leasing, specifically on self-guided tours and what you can do to enable your sales teams and leasing teams to use that on site. So be on the lookout again for an email from me if you guys want to join that webinar here in the next couple weeks. But again, thank you so much for joining us.